to our families through burial insurance, as we were taught to call it, because that's what we thought that we needed, was just burial insurance. Consequently, that burial insurance plan gets used up and nothing was left for those survivors. And that's where our families have, I think, been not given the best situation for our lives. Now, pre-arranging is a new term to many families today, because we've only talked about burial and life, and of course you mentioned whole life and term life and universal life, and I'll just quickly just kind of go over those. Whole life means, yes, you're going to pay for this policy for you the rest of your life. Right now, the insurance companies, the good companies, consider life being up to an age 121. Many companies, especially those that we might see advertised, may stop at 85, but we are living longer now. And so we need policies that are going to last a lot longer than age 85. So that's whole life insurance. Now, term life insurance, I do like to provide term life insurance, but for the younger families with children. They're buying a home, they got children that they're raising, and they're trying to get them up to be adults, and that is where term life fits in real well, because it can protect the lives of the family during those growing up years, when it's really important to have something left. In the event the husband or the wife passed on, then something is left there for them to survive on. And then universal life is kind of a combination of term and whole life insurance. Whole life has cash value, universal life has cash value. But I like for my people to know that cash value on insurance is something that we want to leave in our policies. We've not been explained to how the cash value should work. We've been told that that is money that we can just pull out of insurance policies. You can do that. However, you have to pay it back, because it's a loan. It's a loan from your face amount of your insurance policy. And if you don't pay that loan back, then that loan grows. And over time, that could eat up the face amount of your insurance policy. And you don't find this out until you're at the funeral home with your loved one has passed on, and now you need that insurance to take care of that funeral. And the insurance company is going to recover their loan and all the interest that has not been paid back during the course of that period of time that that loan has been out there. So we need to understand completely what taking money out of an insurance policy means, because that has been devastating to families. And I've seen it happen too many times at the funeral home, when they need that policy and they find out that they're not getting all the money back. So whole life is what we really need for taking care of the funeral at the time that funerals occur. But we've got pre-need now, which is basically like a whole life, can be a whole life paid up policy that we write up that covers the cost of a funeral service. I'm with the Harmon Funeral Home here in Tyler most of the time, working with families who come in to make preparations for the final to make preparations for burying the loved one. And when that time comes, it's important to have the monies available to pay for that funeral service. A funeral service starts from the moment that you call the funeral home to, and I always say, until you put a marker on the grave. We sometimes don't remember that that marker on that grave is very important if we're going to have a burial. Some are choosing cremation now, and that is an option that is available to families. But burial is what we have been accustomed to.
Yeah.
And so burial starts with the first call, and that's when the funeral home is called to pick up the remains from where death has occurred. And then if we're going to have a funeral and the casket's going to be open for viewing our loved ones, and that loved one has to be embalmed. And there's a mortician involved there. That's a special person that has a license, who's qualified and who has to keep up their licensing to do mortician work. And one mortician may work through several funeral homes, because it's not a lot of people who want to do this, but someone has to do it. Yeah, that's right. So after the mortician has embalmed, then the remains has to be dressed and laid in a casket. And during this period of time, of course, the family is dealing with having to prepare for that day when the actual funeral takes place. And so now that the funeral home has prepared the loved one, and you've gone in and reviewed your loved one and made sure that they're prepared the way that you want them to be, then you are able to go ahead and
So how much is the average funeral? How much does the average funeral cost these days?
In today's figures, an average funeral is going to run somewhere upwards of $5,000. And that's from the time of pickup to burial at the cemetery, opening and closing the grave, as well as putting the marker on that grave. And $5,000 is on the low end now.
Yeah.
Back in the day, as I was growing up, a funeral cost maybe $800 or $1,000, and that was pretty much no more.
No more. Those days are over with.
Absolutely. So that's why it's so important to have an insurance policy or a pre-arrangement where the expenses can be covered, because the funeral homes are not in a position to take credit. Our loved ones need to be responsible for paying those premiums for those burial or life insurance policies, and so that money is available for the family to use to pay the funeral home, because the funeral home is a licensed facility. It has to be licensed to sit there as a funeral home.
Yeah.
The funeral directors have to be licensed. Those that work with the remains all have to be trained and know how to prepare a deceased person. And
it costs.
It costs money to do
everything
that.
Costs.
You have people cost and equipment cost.
It costs to come in this world, and it costs to go out.
Absolutely.
You know, I wish we had a lot more time to discuss this, but this is what we're gonna do. Miss Alva ran the phone number is on the bottom of the screen. She does this full time. You know, I've been a licensed agent for 14 years, but I still work on a full-time job. But Miss Alva, she works full-time. This all she does is see families on a daily basis. So I want to strongly encourage you to please give her a call, because you know, one of the most devastating things that can happen, you know, it's already rough when a family member dies, but man, you know, for them to have to be thinking about you know, the financial consequences of, you know, that is going to take place on tomorrow and all of that, that's just too much stress. And so when I first got into the insurance business, even before I even started selling insurance, it just so like you, Miss Alva, it was just something I believe God put in my heart to do. But it was always important, because I seen my parents get life insurance policies. So when I got married, I knew that I needed to leave something for my wife, and vice versa if she'd go before me, that we would protect our income. So when I was told that to look at insurance as income protection, that really hit home for me, because as they explained to me, you protecting your income. You rent money until you get your own money. Right now, you have a mortgage. You have you want to put your kids in college. You want to do these things. But if you pass, that income that was coming in that house is gone now. But if you can rent somebody else's money, which is from a major company, then you will have that money in place if something happened to you, and vice versa with your wife. So we want to encourage those of you that are watching this broadcast, just like we said, with salvation of your soul, that's something you don't need to put off. You don't need Jesus. The Word of God says, the day that you hear His voice, harden not your heart. It's appointed once for man to die, so we know that when we enter into this world, we enter through the womb of our mother, but we have no clue how we're going to leave this place. It can be through a car wreck, it can be through a counselor, it can be whatever. We don't know, but we must be ready, so we need to prepare ourselves to be ready spiritually and physically, that when we pass this life, that our family, because Scripture also says a good man leaves an inheritance for his children. And insurance is a tax-free, tax-deferred. Could you explain that real quickly before we run out of time? How the insurance is tax-deferred. A lot of people really don't understand what that means. So will you explain that?
Actually, Pastor Colfer, right now, as I understand it, insurance and death proceeds or death benefits, and that's when the insurance policy pays off after the loved one has died. That money is not taxed. Yeah. It's passed on to your loved ones tax-free. So that's what life insurance really means. You're leaving something there for the lives of those that are left. And yes, you don't have to pay taxes on that money now. I hope that never changes.
Yeah, me too. Hope that never changes. So that's a good way to leave wealth to your family. Now, I wish we had more time, but Ms. Alva would be happy to receive a phone call from you, and she can come visit you in your home, sit down with you or your family, or you can come over to Harmon. Whichever way you can set that out. Set that up, do it. Call her number. It's there on the bottom of the screen. Miss Alva Rand. And once again, just want to thank you for taking out the time of your busy schedule, and so we can talk to the community about the importance of getting life insurance policies in place. So I want to thank you once again, and God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor Colfer. It's been a pleasure.
All right. God bless. That's it. I think we got enough time.
I got frozen there.
I will edit that out.
Okay, please.
Yeah, I'll be able to edit. I'll be able to make it switch and go to, switch in and out. It'll be like that never happened.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, I think we wrapped it up. I'm not for sure if we